Dear God, if I should keep making gun videos, please give me a sign. Boys! Buckle up, Kanan! I texted a buddy of mine that I'd finally got my hands on a Tavor X95, and he responded, "That's dope. Too bad Bullpups are trash in general." I mean, I didn't need his approval. Would have been nice. Ironically, he had just explained the arduous process of getting an SBR approved. Some of the most preferred flavors of the AR are the shorter variants around 10 to 12 inches, something the NFA and ATF have a beef with. And might I say, those three-letter thugs can pound sand. Meanwhile, Bullpups are the equivalent to a system glitch. So why don't more people use them? Well, part of that is that no other semi-automatic, magazine-fed rifle comes even close to the popularity of the AR-15. To the point where it might as well stand for, say it with me, America's Rifle. Assault rifle. And along with market superiority comes any regular enjoyer's worst nightmare, a fanboy. You'll know them by their impressive knowledge, obsessive passion, and abundant use of the word trash. Avtomov Kalashnikov? Trash. Fusil automatique léger? Trash. Anything different or innovative? Le trash. Simply because they're not Armalite rifles. And while I appreciate and enjoy the plentiful and obvious merits of the AR platform, I think missing out on history, variety, innovation, and an understanding of why we're in a golden age of firearms is a real shame. You might as well punch Ian McKellum in the face. All right, full transparency. The Tavor X95 has been on my want list for a bit, and my expectations are high.
Pretty high, man.
And I like their lineup overall. So when they sent me this for testing and review, not only was it a wish fulfillment, but a bit of a milestone in my guntuber journey, and a welcome break from screaming at the slow dribble that is my subscriber count. Move! But we live in a meritocracy, and I need to act like it. So excitement and fandom aside, I'm not gonna let its space gun looks or OD green color, or the fact that its name is the geographic spot where Jesus was transfigured, sway me one bit. Journalism. Let's start with the biggest and most obvious strength. The Tavor has an overall length of just 26 inches, which is the average equivalent length of a 10 to 12 inch barreled AR, with the stock collapsed. Obviously your stock, your muzzle device, or if you run a folding adapter can make that vary. Either way, that AR would be a controlled NFA item subject to a tax stamp, registration, and adding another year to Dianne Feinstein's millennia-long reign. The Tavor will not, because it has a 16.5 inch barrel that runs past the trigger to the rear-mounted action. So basically, it's a Porsche 911, which is a German car. 16 inches represents a great sweet spot for 223 between the Vietnam-style 20-inchers that have excellent range and velocity, but are cumbersome, and the shorter 10 to 12s, which offer more maneuverability at the cost of less dwell time and an incomplete powder burn. Velocity. Speaking of velocity, you know what round is slow and still rocks? 45 ACP. And conveniently, XStar USA, the sponsor of this episode, will soon be offering an EP45. Chambered in, you guessed it, 380. I'm testing this out for review, and so far, it's awesome, even with the compliant alterations they've had to make for the brace band. Stay tuned for that, and thanks to XStar for their support. Ammo was provided by Global Ordnance. I shot ADI match grade 223 and Igman 55 grain. It all ran great, no issues, and I put about 700 rounds through it. Make sure to check out my links as well as liking, commenting, and subscribing for future videos. I'm working on some merchandise and a Patreon so I can produce better videos more frequently for you. I'm also going to do a car-gun combo video. Not sure well that's going to go over, but tell me in the comments below, do you watch car content? And if so, what is it? Donut Media? 1320 Doug DeMuro? Haggerty? Let me know. The original development of the Tavor, or earlier TAR-21, was meant to be a more reliable, easier to maintain, easier to march with, more compact and better suited for CQC and mechanized units, and better suited for the Middle Eastern environment than the M4A1. All this, and it weighs within a half a pound. Out back under the durable and very nice OD green polymer is a long stroke gas piston system. This is operated by controls in front of the action, which, as we know, is what makes it a bullpup. If you want to geek out on a great rendering of the internal workings, I've linked a video below by 45 Snipers. It's fantastic and worth a watch. Now the trigger actuates a lever linkage that connects to the rearward trigger pack, resulting in one of the Bullpup's greatest criticisms, a subpar or detached feel. Now I haven't shot the earlier iterations to compare, but this thing exceeded my expectations. Clearly, a lot of work has been done by IWI throughout its lifespan, and seeing how it's the standard issue of the IDF, their best interest goes beyond just sales. I measured between a 4.8 and 5.2 pound pull, and I think that's pretty good for a factory trigger. Take up and reset are longer than the AR, but the wall is defined, the brake is clean, and it's very usable. Timney and Geisley both make trigger packs, but they're a bit steep at about $400. I'll still probably get one. We have a reversible ejection port, and the ejection pattern is very strong and consistent, which I like. Removing the bolt and recoil mechanism is easy. You just have to pop this pin out, which does have a detent, the butt pad swings down, and you can just slide the mechanism out. Disassembly of the rest of the gun is a bit more complicated, but most of the maintenance that you'll do is going to be back here. I really like the rearward weight, keeps the weight of the gun in your shoulder, mag changes are close to the body, and the huge bolt release is perfect for mag changes. I was able to top my AR mag change speed amazingly after just one mag of drills. You can drop the bolt immediately after mag insertion, just prime your thumb ready for boop, insert, your thumb is there, and boop. Now the rearward bias does bring some issues as well. Closer to your body means closer to your kit and can potentially interfere. Also, my forearm on my primary arm sometimes pinched the mag, and it would not drop free when I released it. Fortunately, the mag release is up here, it's ambidextrous, and it's easy to manipulate. Now, another thing it requires practice is manipulating the bolt while standing in the field. If you need to inspect or clear a malfunction, the gun can feel very top-heavy and wobbly. Fortunately, the butt pad is grippy, and there's a few methods I like. I like pressing it against my body, preferably lower, so I'm not potentially flagging anybody, pulling the charge handle back, pulling the bolt open into place, and then walking my hand off the charging handle. Practice it definitely takes getting used to, but it saves a lot of frustration. There are lots of QD mounts, 5 total, and they're well placed. I'm not a huge fan of the safety selector. Manipulating it to fire is much easier than to safe. I would call safe unnatural. Now the large signature trigger guard is very cool, and it protects your hand when you post up on a barrier. That shorter rail means less space to prop up on, and you don't want to bash your knuckles. Traditional pistol grips are available, but I like this one just fine. At the fore end, the gun has toolless removable covers that offer plenty of Picatinny rail underneath, and it's all very solid and well thought out. I have a huge bright Streamlight ProTac 2 on here, and it tucks in well. Now if you want M-LOK, there are different offerings of rails that are surprisingly reasonable price-wise, so you can set it up however you like. I plan to add a vertical foregrip, and that's mainly to do with my biggest gripe on the gun, the charging handle. Now with a normal C grip, it puts it right on your wrist, which is uncomfortable as it is, but if you accidentally hit the bolt release while inspecting the gun, which is not hard to do, it will drop and slap pretty hard. Even worse, it's very easy to nudge the gun and knock it out of battery. It's non-reciprocating, but even the smallest nudge unlocks the bolt, and now you have a click, no bang. And you can't just close it back up. You have to either cycle the round or pull the bolt almost all the way back and then reseat it and have another go. Now there are aftermarket handles that I plan to shop, like the folding one from Manticore Arms. Up front, I have an MFT E2 AR MD brake compensator hybrid, and it does a great job while looking mean. The Tavor uses a locking washer behind the muzzle device, which means you don't need a crush washer, and I was able to change out the factory birdcage in about 15 minutes using nothing more than 3 wrenches and a chair while I was playing DMZ. Best of all, the Tavor is a great shooter. It's very flat, the 7.5 pound weight is not light, as you can tell watching me struggle doing this video, but it's masked by the rearward bias, and it mitigates a lot of recoil. Likewise, the gun mass closer to your body feels tighter and more controllable. For example, ready up drills take less effort due to less weight out over your trigger hand. Now this muzzle device is about as aggressive as I'd go, as everything is much closer to you, so I'd avoid going too crazy on that. The trigger was not an issue for me, the long reset was not the best, and it made rapid fire slower, but I really only do that for show. The gun cinches up nicely on your chest with a sling, and the shorter overall length makes it easier for movement, but the charging handle means you can't sling it on your back. At longer range, it ding targets with ease, and I found the shooting position comfortable. Speaking of which, I'm running a Swamp Fox Arrowhead 1:10 LPVO, and it's an incredible optic for the money. The glass is clear, it's very well made, it has a very forgiving eye box, and the reticle illumination gets very bright. So earlier I said we're in a golden age of firearms, and it's not just because ARs are cheap, awesome, or that there's 11 billion aftermarket parts for them. If you look at the movie industry, big budget films are mostly sequels, prequels, and remakes. Nobody wants to take a risk on anything else. Even worse, they treat the audience like morons with modern social issue injection and breaking the show don't tell rule. As a result, the moviegoing experience has become unreliable. In the firearms industry, guns like the Tavor exist, and even though it's exotic, literally backwards compared to an AR, and you're responsible for figuring out how it works, it's super reliable and a solid performer. You mean to tell me you can get an expert-engineered, refined and battle space gun offered at your local gun shop during some of the most aggressive and tyrannical gun control in our history for the price of 2 months' worth of groceries? That is a golden age. Or groceries are just really expensive.
Man, if this war came along, I'd be...
It's been said that it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And while I agree with that analogy, and you probably too, I think we need to take it a little more literally. Where is the gardener in this analogy? Out of place in the war. And where is the warrior? In the garden, but not necessarily out of place, because this warrior understands the balance between cultivation and fighting, war and peace. And if we're not gardening and we're not cultivating peace and we're not doing everything that we can to prevent war, then there won't be a garden to come back to when we finished fighting. That's going out, sowing seeds of truth, talking to people you don't agree with grace and an understanding that if you tell them something they don't agree with a sense of love and grace, that you might just change their mind. But we're not really trying to do that right now. We're just outraged, we've given up on the garden, and we want to go to war. Thanks for watching. God bless America. We got work to do. The Tavor X95 by IWI. Let's check it out. Let's go smoke some pot. Are you familiar with Roman Road?